Hello! The crew of the spaceship Orville are close friends and teammates, and when one of them gets into trouble and is transported to the distant past of 2015, an expedition of 3 humans and a robot arrives on Earth to get him back. They overcome obstacles on their journey and find Lieutenant Gordon, but even so, everything turns out to be more complicated than it would seem at first sight. There's an evening gathering on the USS Orville. Lieutenant Gordon Malloy plays a song on the acoustic guitar. After his performance, the ship's crew and guests scatter to socialize and have a drink. Robot Isaac approaches midshipwoman Charlie Burke.
Hello.
May I speak with you for a moment?
Sorry, busy having fun.
Chief Engineer John Lamar sympathizes with Isaac and tells him how to spark up a conversation in a way that's less awkward. After escaping from the robot, Charlie finds a copy of a smartphone that belonged to Laura, a girl who lived in the early 21st century and was found in a time capsule. This copy was made by Gordon, who shows her pictures of Laura and tells her that he once even asked the computer to recreate the girl and her surroundings in a simulation.
You talk like you knew this girl.
Kind of feel like I did.
The lieutenant also takes a selfie with Charlie and Officer Bordas. Later in the lab, John and Isaac show Captain Ed Mercer and Officer Kelly Grayson their progress in improving the Aronov device, a quantum gas pedal. First, the quantum field generated by the device can now encompass huge objects, including an entire spacecraft. And second, it can be used to send captured objects into the past or future. Right away, the captain reports the scientific breakthrough to Admiral Perry, who immediately concludes that the research is too dangerous to fall into the wrong hands. It would be a disaster of unprecedented proportions if the violent Kaylon, who are at war with the Planetary Union, were to get their hands on it. They could use it to travel back in time and destroy the Union before it was ever created. The Admiral orders the device to be transferred to a convoy for transportation to a secret research facility. The Orville meets its allies so they can accompany them, when suddenly all of the ships request to land and are met with dead silence. Upon arrival, the protagonists see that the planet's orbit is littered with the wreckage of Planetary Union ships and destroyed space stations. There are no signs of life. The Kaylon have somehow learned of their arrival and destroyed the research facility. The Orville is ambushed. The convoy engages in a chaotic battle with its enemies. The Orville zigzags in the rubble to escape its pursuers, but takes heavy damage. The Union commanders order all ships to retreat, when the Kaylon flagship immobilizes the Orville with a gravity beam and demands that they hand over the Aronov device. Ed orders Security Chief Tala to destroy the cargo, when a huge piece of debris crashes into the ship, and Tala gets injured. Lieutenant Malloy volunteers to complete the task, takes his blaster, and rushes to the lab. The team overloads the quantum core and directs all the ship's energy into the deflectors, hoping that this will cause an energy burst that will break the gravity beam's grip. Gordon is already in place and takes aim at the device, but hesitates for a second, and reaches the point at which the core overloads to 100%. Something strange happens to Gordon, while the Orville escapes the clutches of the enemy and makes a quantum leap to safety. After the battle, the crew assesses the damages and discovers that Gordon has disappeared without a trace. John discovers data saying that the machine is recently activated on its own. Before the crew has time to test their hypothesis, they are interrupted by a message from Malloy, which was launched 400 years ago and is coming from Earth. In it, Malloy tells us that he has ended up in 2015 and has been there for 6 months. He calls for help and asks to get him out of this temporal mess.
Send help. I miss you guys.
The team also discovers an obituary in the archives, which states that Malloy has lived the rest of his days on Earth, working as a pilot in private aviation. It turns out that they were unable to save him, and one must not interfere with the time continuum. Moreover, the reason Gordon ended up in this very century is because the device sensed his desire to meet the girl Laura, who was living exactly in 2015. Officer Kelly remarks that these are weird circumstances, since Malloy knows the laws of temporal travel, and that he was supposed to remain unseen and leave no trace. Isaac replies that it's not that simple. While the future they haven't yet decided whether to interfere with the past or not, the universe is in superposition, and all possible outcomes exist simultaneously. The captain decides to get the lieutenant out after all. The Orville once again overloads its quantum core, and the ship is sent back in time. However, due to a lack of a fuel source, Dysonium, the jump does not reach its goal, and they only make it to 2025. Lieutenant Malloy probably won't be happy about this.
From Gordon's perspective, he's been here for 10 years.
As the ship has completely run out of fuel, the Orville itself is stuck in the past. Ed orders Isaac and Charlie to go to Earth to retrieve the Dysonium from its depths with a geodesic probe, while he and Kelly head off to look for Gordon. By using a hologram, Isaac disguises himself as a human, and the shuttle activates invisibility. The robot makes a second awkward attempt to make small talk with Charlie. The team lands on the outskirts of Pasadena, California.
Avoid any unnecessary temporal footprints, but complete the mission at all costs.
Simple as that.
Gordon finishes his flight on a private jet and is filling out a logbook in the airplane hangar when suddenly he sees Ed and Kelly walking towards him in shock. They apologize for missing him by 10 years, but Gordon is in no hurry to go with them. In the car, he explains that he is now living in the past. After all, he didn't even know if his friends had survived the battle and started his life here all over again. Kelly declares that he will have to answer to the Planetary Union for breaking the temporal law. Before inviting them into his house, Gordon declares that he is not going back. He introduces them to his son Edward and his wife, the same Laura whose smartphone he kept on the ship. She is already pregnant with a second child. Isaac tries, unsuccessfully, to talk to Charlie about various topics on the road, and together they realize that they can't get to the deposit without vehicles. Luckily, a biker bar pops up along the way. They stand out a lot compared to the drunk, brutal men in leather jackets. But the girl boldly makes contact with 2 of them and offers to bet that the strongest boogeyman in the bar can't beat her brother, the scrawny Isaac, in an arm wrestling match. The winner gets the bikes. Before the bout, she commands the robot to win in a way that makes it look plausible, and Isaac almost lets the bully lay his hand on the table.
Oh no, I am losing.
But then he easily wins, declaring that arm wrestling is not the right hobby for his rival, and the pair depart on their iron horses. The Malloy family hosts the space guests for dinner, and Laura recounts how Gordon won her over because he understood her so much better than anyone else from their very first date. Apparently, he didn't fill her in on the details of his past life, in which he studied her life from notes and photographs on her phone. After lunch, the captain leads the lieutenant away from his family and gives him a serious scolding.
We ought to haul your ass back to the ship right now and throw you in the brig.
Shut up!
Excuse me, Lieutenant?
Gordon is outraged that his friends blame him for breaking the temporal law, for he has tried for 3 whole years to follow it, surviving in excruciating isolation in the woods. His only other option was to die, and the captain insists that he should have done so, for the sake of the fates of all other people. Malloy, on the other hand, observes that nothing has changed in the future from the actions he has already taken, since Ed and Kelly are peacefully living on. But the captain assures him that any interference in time has very unpredictable effects and should be kept to a minimum. However, if the effects are that unpredictable, then maybe the decision to take Gordon away will lead to something terrible too, and how things are going now is the way they should go.
Maybe this is how it's supposed to be. Who's to say? Who's to say I shouldn't be able to do whatever I want?
Seems you really have acclimated to this century.
Kelly says that they're going to take the lieutenant with them anyway. Gordon, on the other hand, desperately yells that he is happy here, so Laura comes to the noise and sees her husband's tears. Gordon kicks his friends out of the house, and they do not resist. Afterwards, he tells his wife the whole truth about himself, but she's not the least bit surprised, and has long suspected something strange, because Gordon once too confidently predicted the outcome of the virus epidemic in 2020, and she's not angry that the man lied to her, for she was not prepared to accept this information before.
I fell in love with you 3 centuries after you were gone.
Their love is truly strong, and it doesn't matter how strange the background of their relationship is. Gordon says that despite the chance to return to the Orville, he will stay with Laura. Charlie and Isaac reach the Dysonium deposit. Analysis reveals that the entry point to the well is directly beneath the house listed for sale. Realtor Nancy is nearby and sees the protagonist's interest, mistaking them for a young couple who are choosing a place to live. She takes them inside, where the girl reluctantly plays the robot's girlfriend so as not to cause suspicion. They examine the basement and stay there alone to launch the probe. While the machine retrieves the disodium, Isaac makes another attempt to talk, much to the annoyance of Charlie, who demands to be told at once what he wants from her. The robot explains that he wants to thank her for reactivating him. That's how she once saved his life. The girl replies that she was just following orders, and Isaac asks why she's so angry with him. It turns out that Charlie was in love with a girl named Amanda, who died because of a robot who was fighting on the side of the enemies of the Union. But Charlie never told her how she felt, because she wanted to take things slow.
You took her life, and by doing that, you took mine.
After sorting things out, the characters leave, and Charlie, angry and upset, tells the realtor that the newlyweds have just broken up. That evening, Gordon is watching television with his family when the doorbell rings. This time, the captain and his assistant have invited Tala to drag the lieutenant away by force. Gordon says he won't abandon his family and will only go to the Orville with Laura and his son. When the officers refuse, Gordon points a blaster at them and threatens, if not to kill them, at least to knock them out with a shot, and to hide the family so that they will never be found. At that moment, the captain receives another message from Isaac, that the ship is fueled and ready for another trip through time. That's when Ed decides to leave the Malloys alone, and instead make a new leap back in time, this one 10 years ago, when Gordon was still waiting for them. This will undo all the events that have happened in the Malloys' lives, creating a reality where their love did not happen.
No us. No Edward. No baby.
What kind of people are you?
Gordon and Laura accuse them of inhumanity and beg them to change their minds, but the officers walk away in silence. The lieutenant himself doesn't pull the trigger either. Knowing they are about to be wiped off the face of the earth, Gordon gathers his family on the couch and tells them he will always love them.
This family is stronger than time.
The Orville goes back in time to 2015, about a month after Gordon's arrival, and he is brought back to the ship. He's happy about the return and thanks his friends. But Ed and Kelly are visibly embarrassed. John informs them that Arnov device was destroyed during their last jump, and repairs will take 6 months or more. They're stuck again. However, it suddenly dawns on the engineer that it's possible to travel to the future without it.
The closer we get to the speed of light, the faster time passes outside of the ship.
Normally, the quantum field protects the ship from this effect during high-speed jumps, but if it's turned off, they'll move forward in time along with space. In just a couple of minutes of flight, at a speed very close to the speed of light, they will travel 400 years forward. However, such a fast travel without a quantum field would expose the Orville to space debris. Even the smallest particle of dust could destroy them. So John directs all the ship's power to the protective deflectors. This works, and the Orville reaches the right point in time and space. After some time, Ed and Kelly tell Gordon everything that happened on their journey. The captain confesses that he still feels bad that his 2 children will never be born.
There's nothing that's gonna make you feel better, but for what it's worth, you did the right thing.
Gordon, in turn, upon learning of his lost family life, says it would be too selfish of him to ruin the time continuum for the sake of his possible love. The friends raise their glasses and reminisce about how, when they were young, they could finish several bottles in an evening. As always, look for the name of the series in the description of the video. In the meantime, let us know in the comments, what would you do if you were the captain? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video to get more awesome stories as often as possible. Watch an interesting movie in a few minutes without rewind? Easy!
We got a great looking audience tonight.
The Sweet Popcorn channel has a mega convenient format waiting just for you. Short retellings of movies, from auteur films to Hollywood blockbusters. Pick up your unlimited ticket by clicking the subscribe button.